Welcome to Colts Talk, presented by Prize Picks. If you made it, that means you love the Indianapolis Colts and want to know more of what's going on. We're glad to have you guys on today's show, where we are going to discuss some ridiculous rumors. They're out there. We need to discuss them. We need to get your opinion, my opinion, and what we are hearing and why. The latest Jonathan Taylor trade rumors in the midst of another extension debate. What is going on with Taylor, and why are different outlets beginning to discuss trade scenarios for the Colts running back? There may be good reason, actually. We'll get into that, plus what Taylor's looking for in a contract coming up. But first, if you love Jonathan Taylor, you want him to stay in Indy, you want him to be a Colt, hit that thumbs up button right now. That'll show support. Plus, I like to think it's good luck to make it happen, so be sure to like today's video. I think this all kind of starts last week, actually. ESPN Stephen Holder gave us an update on the Jonathan Taylor extension talks, and I think one leads to the rest, right, in this type of scenario. Here's what Holder had to say with the latest on Jonathan Taylor. Taylor is hoping for an early extension heading into the final year of his contract on the heels of last year's huge season. At 27, Taylor averages $14 million on his current deal. That means 6 running backs have higher averages, which will likely inform his contract stance. The Colts have shown little initiative when it comes to extending contracts so far this season, so this is a story to monitor heading into training camp. Want to stop there? Taylor wants an extension now. The Colts aren't trying to get extensions done. Kind of a tough situation to be in. So, as he said, keep in mind, when Taylor faced a similar scenario in 2023, it resulted in a contract standoff that lasted 2 months. Taylor, coming off a Pro Bowl season last year, he, like the rest of the Colts, good in the first half, bad in the second half after the Daniel Jones injury. Not all his fault. You know, you definitely take away a whole aspect of the game, and it's hard to deal with. But again, he ends up with a Pro Bowl year, as he's had multiple in the past few years, and a good player overall. Extension-wise, as Holder noted, you're at about 7th right now in the NFL, which, look, respectable. And my fingers crossed situation is, can we just re-up 2 years at the same price? I feel like everybody can kind of win in that scenario. However, I doubt that's what Taylor and his representation are feeling like, a extension with the same money just over a few years in general. But again, you can compare him numbers-wise to some of these guys, age-wise, talent-wise. He's heading into his 30s. But when we discussed the Jonathan Taylor extension last time, you and I talked about it here on the show in general, I feared what Holder mentioned there, and that was a similar situation to 2023. Taylor getting nasty with the front office getting back. I can't remember how much was Jim Irsay and Ballard, and it just felt like it got really, really nasty last time in general. So my thought was, like Taylor, let's get this bad boy done, right? And look, he said he wants to be a Colt. I think that's a good thing in general. I don't know if that necessarily means he's willing to take a discount to be a Colt, right? He may look at that list we showed you, say, I'm better than 5 of those guys. I should make 16, 17, 18. Or, hey, the quarterback's not healthy. I should be the guy getting paid if our quarterback's constantly hurt and we're drafting new quarterbacks and we're trading quarterbacks, all that in general. Now, with that report from Stephen Holder about a deal not being set up, a deal not being done in general for the Colts and Jonathan Taylor, I absolutely think both now and until a deal is done and or Taylor's traded, trade rumors are going to be there. They just are. It's a big-time name. He has a big contract, but not like a crazy, obviously he's not in the top 5 running back-wise. He's not touching the 20s. I think he's a tradable contract, final year of his contract. Unless Jonathan Taylor signs an extension early like he wants to, you are going to hear Jonathan Taylor trade rumors again until the situation is resolved in general. And we have a specific one that we've already seen that I want to get to in just 1 second. First, today's show is presented by America's #1 sports picks app. That is Prize Picks. Such a fun time right now to be on the Prize Picks app. We've talked baseball, basketball, football. We've also been getting at it with you guys about some World Cup lineups that you can put together on Prize Picks. And the big thing with the lineups, as we show you one of our season-long lineups coming up, different sports, different times a year. You can go tonight, you can go the weekend, you can go a season-long lineup like we have right here. Rookie Kenyon Sadiq, we're feeling a big year for him in the Big Apple. More on his receiving yards at 449.5. Jordan Tyson, producer AP loves him. He thinks he'll be perfect with Tyler Shuck down south. And we're thinking more on his receiving touchdowns there. And then Caleb Downs, who will play the nickel slot corner role, it seems, for the Cowboys. I think that's going to get him more than an interception and a half. Names, stats, and then more or less. Easy to put together on Prize Picks. Plus, with our new user offer, all you have to do is download the Prize Picks app today with the link in the comment section and description. Then you'll use code HMA. That'll get you $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, that is code HMA. You'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's because on Prize Picks, it's good to be right. We recently got a trade idea from CBS Sports about Jonathan Taylor. And look, I've seen a lot of big names also in this article and other articles in general. Taylor's not the only one, especially at running back. Alvin Kamara is going to be another name that's floated around. So it wasn't overly surprising to see this and the idea that actually, it was Garrett Podell who pretty confident that a deal like this would get done. He said that Taylor would get traded. He said before the deadline, whether that be training camp or the deadline itself. His idea, the Colts receive a third-round pick. He didn't put the year, so I just threw one on there. Never know how deep or far you'll get with that trade. And then straight up, third-rounder for Jonathan Taylor. That was the trade idea from, again, Garrett Podell of CBS Sports. And he said anytime before the deadline. So, and back to the Stephen Holder report, you kind of go from, does a deal get done in training camp? Does it not? Does a deal get done in the preseason? Does it not? Is there a holdout? Is there not? Right? And then in general, you see how good the Colts are into the future, which we'll get to in just a second. But Jonathan Taylor to the Steelers in exchange for the Colts receiving a third-round draft pick. Grade the trade: A, B, C, D, or F. Again, the Colts get a third-round pick. Expiring contract of Jonathan Taylor to the Steelers: A, B, C, D, or F. Here's what Podell had to say about the trade. Should the Steelers get off to a hot start in Aaron Rodgers' swan song and his pal Mike McCarthy back as his head coach, Pittsburgh could go all in on the future Hall of Famer season. Jaylen Warren is a nice change of pace back, and Rico Dowdle is someone McCarthy said in Dallas could stand to work on his vision as a runner. That leads to the idea of trading for Taylor, would give McCarthy the bell cow back he's missed since Zeke Elliott's decline and Tony Pollard's fibula injury during the 2022 postseason run with the Dallas Cowboys. As I said just a little bit ago, and I'll reiterate, Jonathan Taylor being traded depends on a couple of factors. The biggest ones for me, the Colts record at whatever point in time if they want to trade him, because I think, they rely on him to be competitive. They hope to have a competitive season. I don't think it's a training camp preseason trade. I think they'll get into their season. I think they'll see how they're playing, they're playing in general. Plus, as I said, can they get a JT contract done, right? That's going to be training camp, preseason. Can they get a deal done? Then they'll see how the season's going. Look, if you don't get a deal done and you're bad, absolutely a Jonathan Taylor trade could get done. By the way, they mentioned Jaylen Warren, Rico Dowdle. I'd like the Colts to get one back. We'll get more into their running back situation here in just a second. But I would also like to reiterate, Chris Ballard loves Jonathan Taylor. He's told many stories about how, that's his guy. That's he drafted him and went out of his way to go get him, and they have a good relationship. And by the way, both those guys' contracts expiring, so would be kind of wild for Ballard to be like, all right, here's a future move, trading one of my best friends to be better for the future where I'm not guaranteed to be the general manager. So that's kind of my stance right now on a Jonathan Taylor trade there. It does kind of lead me to question in this scenario, where did things stand with running back 2 in Indianapolis? I said if you traded Jonathan Taylor, I'd like some type of young running back, somebody who can really play in general back in that trade. Why? Because here's the running back situation for the Indianapolis Colts. Jonathan Taylor and everybody else, right? It's not like some teams have where they've got a 1A and a 1BC or a 1A and a 2A, like a really good number 2. Right now, DJ Giddens and Seth McGowan will battle for that running back 2 spot. Then you have 2 undrafted free agents and Ulysses Bentley IV, who also has not played a lot of football in general. That brings us to the Giddens-McGowan discussion about running back 2 for the Indianapolis Colts. Before I get all the details in your head about this competition and my thoughts in general, I want to get yours. Pick a running back 2. Who's going to get these snaps outside Jonathan Taylor? DJ Giddens, type 1. Seth McGowan, the rookie, type 2. Let's start with Giddens. Second year in the NFL coming up here, a former 5th-round pick of the Colts back in the 2025 draft. They're kind of locked in this space where they are trying to find a solid running back two outside Jonathan Taylor. And I do think Jonathan Taylor is a bell cow back, right? So he gets most of your carries, if not all the carries, and then you see what you get outside of that. Giddens just didn't have it last season. Again, I understand he's a 5th-round pick, but he just never really popped or got great opportunities in general in this scenario. Now, the deal there is, Giddens being unproven or Giddens kind of where you stand with DJ Giddens in general here, I think he's unproven. And it's tough to give that label to somebody who just hasn't played much, but it's also easy to give that label to somebody who hasn't played much in general. Only about 41 snaps last year in 2025. Didn't give a ton of special teams either, so it's not like you have this great, he's earned it by doing this, that, and the other thing. It's just kind of like we haven't seen the guy play. Show me something. Whether it be in training camp or preseason, show me some burst, acceleration, playmaking, special teams, something. I need to see it from DJ Giddens to feel like he should be running back two. His only advantage at this point in time, and it's kind of funny once again because you say he hasn't played much, right? At least he has the experience of being in the building, in this offense, around the other players, Steichen, all the guys for at least one season. Here's what the Colts head coach had to say about DJ Giddens. I think understanding the system going into year 2 is part of it, and I think we'll see a lot of growth going into training camp when the pads come on, because it is hard to look at young running backs with no pads. But you can still see a little bit of vision and the cuts and stuff, but the physicality when the pads come on is a big deal. That brings us to McGowan, who is in a similar situation as Giddens, really, because he's fresh, he's new, he's unproven in the NFL in general. Colts used a 7th-round pick on the Kentucky Wildcat, and there are some past legal troubles that Chris Ballard said he loves giving a second chance. He loves seeing a second chance, and I think it's going to be interesting for McGowan, who had some highs and lows in college, right? A lot of transferring, a lot of changing schools, a lot of finding the right scenario. Now he gets to the NFL and should be good, right? I think that's a giant question mark. Now, the big thing that McGowan can do to get snaps over Giddens is blocking. Yeah, that seems to be a huge issue for DJ Giddens, both when he was drafted and after 1 year with the Indianapolis Colts. Many comments, both from Shane Steichen and the rest of the staff, about needing a pass blocker when running back 2 is on the field. If McGowan can do that, I could easily see him getting snaps as the second running back.